right-wingers are so desperate to justify their radical voter suppression agenda, they'll do anything, even if it means possibly committing voter fraud themselves. You may remember this guy. He's the professional smear artist who was behind the fake Acorn scandal. Now he's sent his cohorts out to fraudulently collect primary ballots in New Hampshire using names of voters who recently died. Federal law says it's illegal to get ballots, quote, that are known by the person to be materially false, fictitious, or fraudulent. Watch this.
There you go, Mr.
Yeah.
You can't change.
Okay, thank you for that.
That sure looks like they're getting ballots to me. Also, New Hampshire law requires all parties to agree when they're being recorded.
Hello. Do you have a Robert Baillieu on your list?
A what?
Robert Baillieu.
A rubber band?
Robert Baillieu.
You have a Thomas McCarran?
Tell me your last name.
M.
I don't see consent there. But no matter what games this guy or anyone else tries, it's baloney. Voter fraud does not exist on a major scale, period. The right-wingers are trying to fool the public, and games and tricks are their strategy. In this New Hampshire scheme, the conservative provocateur claims he got his hand on more than a dozen ballots. But if these radical voter ID laws were passed nationwide, 21 million voters would no longer be able to vote. Is that any way to justify these radical laws? They have one goal: stop blacks, Latinos, elderly, and the poor from voting. Joining me now from Manchester, New Hampshire, is Paul Bergeron. He is from Nashua, New Hampshire. He's city clerk in Nashua and has been in charge of overseeing elections in Nashua for 12 years. Paul, thanks for joining me tonight.
Well, thank you for having me. Glad to be here.
Did these guys break New Hampshire law in trying to record getting some voter ballots with dead men's names that they knew were dead?
Well, in my belief, they did, and certainly I know the Attorney General's office is investigating the matter. These people went up to the checklist table and presented themselves as being people that they were not, and our election laws state that anyone who poses as a different individual as to their qualifications as a voter has committed a crime in our election laws, and they're subject to a civil penalty of up to $5,000. They took physical possession of the ballots, and that to me shows that they were acting in an illegal manner.
Now, Paul, according to what we've been able to get, including some of the information from Republicans, there's been one case of voter fraud in the last several years in New Hampshire, just one in the whole state.
I'm only aware of one. It happened in the Seacoast area, and it was a young man who used his father's name to obtain a ballot, and he went to court and was found guilty and sentenced to community service.
1 out of 3 million votes, just one. So if, in fact, this man, Akeet, collected more than a dozen ballots in doing this film, he actually increased fraud in the state by 1,200% to try to prove there was a problem that didn't exist.
Yeah, you don't prove that there's been voter fraud by committing it yourself. He's establishing an activity that creates a voter fraud situation, and it's his own activity that should be looked at and prosecuted.
So, Paul, you're there, you're the city clerk in Nashua. Do you feel there is a problem of voter fraud in the state?
No, I do not. I have not seen enough instances of any voter fraud in the state. I know that the Attorney General's office investigates any claims of voter fraud and have not found any to be of substance.
Now, the estimates from that we've been able to get from the Secretary of State in New Hampshire estimates that 50 to 75,000 New Hampshire registered residents don't have photo ID. The fact is that if you put photo ID laws in, you're actually disenfranchising legitimate voters, and you're not stopping massive voter fraud because there is no massive voter fraud.
And let's not forget that it's also possible to counterfeit IDs as well. So if someone were to decide that they wanted to commit fraud in a state that has voter ID laws, that can still be done. We're not changing or limiting voter fraud by putting up obstacles to get to the ballot box.
Very interesting. So if you're saying that even if you have photo ID, if one was really trying to play a fraudulent game, they could just play phony voter ID, photo ID. So this investigation really would amount to much of nothing anyway.
Absolutely.
It's amazing. Have you, in your experience, and I've got to let you go, I know, but in your experience, have you ever had a concern raised about massive voter fraud? I know you said it is not there, but I'm trying to find out where this came from, giving them all the benefit of the doubt that maybe I'm wrong, that it's not geared for a certain demographic. But has people come up to you saying they're worried about voter fraud?
No, I don't get a lot of complaints about that. Occasionally in an election, someone will complain that a car with out-of-state plates or a bus with out-of-state plates are bringing people from across the border. But there are some out there who believe there's conspiracies in every action that government is involved in. And I haven't seen any instances of voter fraud up until this particular election in my city or the city that I worked in previously.
Well, it's up 1,200%. Now you got 13. Paul Bershawal, thanks for joining us tonight.
You're welcome. And thank you.